What if a god of thunder was hurled across the cosmos, and awoke in a universe that does not believe in gods at all? Space is silent as lightning tears it open. For half a second, the void between stars fractures like glass, and something ancient, furious, and alive crashes through it. Sensors aboard a distant Federation starship scream in protest. Energy readings spike beyond known physics. The laws of reality bend, then snap back into place. And drifting unconscious in the cold vacuum, hammer still clenched in his fist, Thor Odinson, Prince of Asgard. He does not know where he is. He does not know when he is. And the universe he has entered is about to question everything it believes about science, destiny, and the nature of gods. Moments later, the USS Enterprise drops out of warp. On the bridge, Captain Jean-Luc Picard stiffens as the viewscreen fills with impossible data. Commander Data's eyes flicker rapidly, processing readings that contradict one another. An object humanoid in shape is floating near a spatial anomaly, radiating energy comparable to a small star. "Captain," Data says calmly. Though his tone is strained, the life form appears mythological. Picard narrows his eyes. "There is no such category, Commander." "There is now, sir." They bring him aboard. Thor awakens, restrained in a sickbed that smells of antiseptic and unfamiliar metals. The ceiling above him hums softly, glowing with cold white light. He senses no magic in the air, no runes, no Odin force yet. The place thrums with power all the same, controlled, disciplined. His fingers tighten instinctively around Mjolnir, but the hammer does not answer. For the first time in centuries, Thor feels something dangerously close to fear. Dr. Beverly Crusher steps closer, tricorder in hand, her eyes wide, despite years of seeing the impossible. His physiology is human-like, but not human. Cellular density far exceeds normal parameters. His energy signature, "Captain, it's off the charts." Thor sits up suddenly, restraints snapping like twigs. Alarms blare. Security officers raise their phasers. "Enough," Thor commands, his voice echoing like distant thunder. "I am Thor, son of Odin. Where is this realm, and who dares bind a god?" Picard steps forward, calm as stone. "You are aboard a Federation starship, and you are not a god." Thor laughs, a deep, booming sound that vibrates through the room. All realms deny gods until they need one, but even as he speaks, he feels it. This universe resists him. The cosmic currents are different. The 9 realms are gone. The Bifrost is silent. Whatever force brought him here severed him from everything he knows. Data tilts his head. "Captain, his claim may not be metaphorical. Historical records across multiple cultures describe a being matching his appearance and abilities. A common archetype," Picard replies. "Powerful aliens, mistaken for deities." Thor's eyes lock onto Picard. "You believe yourselves masters of reason," he says softly. "Tell me, Captain, when your reason fails you, what then?" Before Picard can answer, the ship shudders violently. On the view screen, space distorts again, but this time, something else is coming through. A massive vessel, angular and merciless, daycloaks in a wash of green energy. Their commander snarls over the view screen. "Federation vessel, power down and surrender. You carry something that does not belong to this universe." Thor feels it now, a familiar hunger for battle. Mjolnir trembles in his hand, suddenly alive again. Picard looks from the Klingon ship to the so-called god standing in his sickbed, and in that moment, the fate of 2 universes hangs on a single question. What happens when the Star Trek universe meets a god who refuses to stay a myth? What happens when a universe built on diplomacy is forced to unleash a god of war it doesn't believe in? Red alert, lights bathe the Enterprise bridge in a pulsing crimson as the Klingon vessel looms closer. Weapons charged, shields flaring like the jaws of a predator ready to strike. Picard stands motionless at the center of the chaos, hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the view screen. He has faced Borg cubes, temporal paradoxes, and the collapse of stars, but never this. Never a being who claims divinity and radiates power that refuses to fit within reason. Captain Worf growls from tactical. His Klingon ridges tense with something dangerously close to reverence. Their weapons are locked on us. They know we have him. Thor steps onto the bridge, the deck plates subtly vibrating beneath each footstep. The crew falls silent. Even the hum of the warp core seems to hush in his presence. His eyes blaze faintly blue as he takes in the stars beyond the view screen, cold, distant, unfamiliar. "These warriors," Thor says, nodding toward the Klingon ship, "they smell of honor and ambition. They will not retreat." Picard turns sharply. "You do not understand our laws. Our conflicts are not settled by gods striking lightning from the heavens." Thor's gaze softens, just slightly. "And yet your enemies come regardless of your laws." As if summoned by his words, the Klingon commander snarls again over the viewscreen. "Federation captain, this is your final warning. The one you shelter is a weapon forged beyond your time. He will be ours." Data's fingers dance over his console. "Captain, their scans indicate they believe Thor is the source of a temporal and dimensional instability. They fear yet desire his power." Thor chuckles darkly. As all conquerors do, the first disruptor blast slams into the Enterprise's shields, throwing officers to the floor. Consoles explode in showers of sparks. Picard staggers but remains upright. "Return fire," he commands. Photon torpedoes streak across space, detonating harmlessly against the Klingon shields. They are outmatched. Picard knows it. Everyone does. Thor closes his eyes. For a heartbeat, nothing happens. Then the lights flicker. Energy ripples through the ship, not electrical, not magnetic, but something older. Thor lifts Mjolnir, and the hammer responds with a low, thunderous growl that echoes through the hull. Crew members exchange fearful glances as gravity shifts, as if the universe itself is leaning in to watch. "Captain," Data says quietly, "energy levels are rising exponentially. If he releases that power within the ship." Picard raises a hand. "Thor," the god opens his eyes. "If I do nothing," he says, voice heavy, "they will destroy you. If I act, I will change this universe." Picard steps closer, meeting the god's gaze. "We do not ask you to be our weapon. We ask you to be our ally. Choose restraint. Choose responsibility." For a long moment, Thor is silent. Memories flicker behind his eyes, Asgard burning, the weight of failure, the cost of unchecked power. Slowly, he turns toward the viewscreen. "I will face them," he says, "but not as a conqueror." Before Picard can object, Thor strides toward the transporter pad. The air crackles violently as the system struggles to lock onto him. Lightning dances across his armor as he vanishes in a thunderclap that rattles every deck. He reappears in open space. No suit, no tether, just a god floating between stars. The Klingon crew freezes in disbelief as Thor raises Mjolnir. Storm clouds form where no atmosphere exists, spiraling around him in defiance of physics. He speaks, and his voice carries across the void, transmitted through channels unknown. "Warriors of Kornos," Thor booms. "You seek power. Come, test your strength against a god." He hurls Mjolnir. The hammer streaks forward faster than any torpedo, smashing into the Klingon vessel's shields with the force of a collapsing star. Energy erupts outward, warping space itself. The Klingon ship reels, systems failing, engines screaming. But something else happens, something no one aboard the Enterprise anticipated. From the ruptured space around Thor, another presence stirs. Not Klingon, not Federation. Ancient, curious, watching. Far beyond the battlefield, an entity older than stars takes notice of the god who does not belong. And it is very interested in what he might become. What if Thor's greatest threat in this universe wasn't an empire, but something that judges gods as experiments, space twists, not explodes twists, as if reality itself is being gently but deliberately turned by an unseen hand. The Klingon ship drifts powerless now, its crew alive but frozen in terror, watching Thor hover amid fading lightning. The god lowers Mjolnir slowly, sensing it before anyone else does. He is no longer alone. On the Enterprise bridge, every console lights up at once. Data stiffens. "Captain, we are being scanned. Not by the Klingons. The energy source is non-corporeal, multidimensional." And Picard's voice is tight. "Comparable to what?" Data pauses. "Comparable to nothing in Federation records. However, it shares similarities with accounts of the entity known as Q." As if summoned by the name, the stars blink out. The viewscreen fills with white, not light. It feels like a judge, then applause, slow, mocking, echoing from everywhere and nowhere at once. While a voice says pleasantly, "This is new." A man appears, floating casually in front of Thor. Immaculate uniform, smug smile, eyes glittering with cosmic mischief. "Q," Picard breathes. Q grins wider. "Ah, Jean-Luc, still clinging to your fragile notions of progress. I see." and you've brought me a toy. Thor scowls. You speak boldly for one who hides behind tricks. Q's eyes sparkle. Oh, I like him already. So, you're a god. Capital G. Hammer, thunder, daddy, issues very mythic. Tell me, Thor Odinson, what makes you special compared to the other delusions of grandeur littering the multiverse? Thor floats closer, lightning flickering faintly along his armor. I do not need your approval. Q snaps his fingers. In an instant, Thor is no longer in space. He stands on a battlefield of ash and ruin, Asgard, burning. He sees himself younger, reckless laughing, as realms fall beneath his hammer. He hears screams he once ignored, feels the weight of lives lost because he chose glory over wisdom. You see, Q's voice echoes. Gods are just children with matches and no supervision. Thor roars, swinging Mjolnir, but the illusion shatters, leaving him suspended again in the void, breathing heavily. His confidence wavers, just for a moment. On the Enterprise, Picard steps forward, fury breaking through his composure. Q, this is not a game. Q sighs dramatically. Everything is a game. Jean-Luc, the only question is who knows they're playing. He gestures, and the Klingon ship vanishes, teleported somewhere safe, irrelevant, dismissed. Then Q's gaze sharpens, locking onto Thor. This universe, Q continues, circling him, is built on balance, exploration, restraint. No gods, no kings, just flawed little mortals, stumbling toward enlightenment. And then you crash in like a lightning bolt from a forgotten age. Thor steadies himself. I did not choose this. No, Q agrees softly. But now you must justify it. With another snap, Q pulls Thrawn the Enterprise into a pocket of folded reality. Stars swirl like paint in water. Time feels thin. Here's the test, Q says. If you stay, the galaxy changes. Empires will chase you. Worlds will worship you. Others will try to kill you. History bends around power like yours. Picard steps beside Thor, defiant. And if he leaves, Q's smile fades. Then whatever tore open reality to bring him here will come searching. And it won't be as polite as I am. Thor closes his eyes. For the first time since arriving, he truly understands the cost. Not just to himself, but to this universe. To these people who face the infinite with nothing but courage and curiosity. He opens his eyes, meeting Picard's gaze. Then I will not be a god here, Thor says quietly. I will be a guardian. Q raises an eyebrow. Interesting answer. The stars begin to scream. Somewhere beyond even Q's perception, something vast stirs an intelligence drawn not to Thor's power, but to his choice, and it is already on its way. What if Thor's choice to stay didn't prevent disaster, but instead marked this universe for something far worse? The first sign is silence. Not the peaceful silence of deep space, but a hollow absence like sound itself has been erased from existence. On the Enterprise bridge, consoles flicker, then go dark. Stars on the viewscreen stretch into thin, trembling lines, as if the universe is holding its breath. Data's voice cuts through the tension, unusually urgent. Captain, spacetime curvature is increasing. This is not war-related. It resembles a localized collapse of quantum probability. Picard turns sharply. In plain terms, Mr. Data, reality is deciding whether it wants us to exist. Thor feels it in his bones. This is not magic, not science. It is something older than either, an imbalance correcting itself. He clenches his jaw, lightning crawling restlessly across his armor. Q, for once, is no longer smiling. Oh, that's not good, Q mutters. Picard fixes him with a glare. You said you were polite. You didn't say you were helpful. Q exhales, all mockery gone. I warned you. Something tore through the multiversal membrane to bring him here. I assumed it was an accident, a cosmic hiccup. He looks at Thor now, not with amusement, but with genuine concern. I was wrong. The void ahead ripples, folding inward like a wound reopening. From it emerges a structure that defies language, part machine, part living geometry, its surface shifting through impossible angles. It does not travel through space. Space rearranges itself to accommodate it. Data's scanners overload instantly. The object is not a vessel. It is a construct of adaptive intelligence. Its energy signature suggests it exists simultaneously across multiple timelines. Thor whispers a name, one he hoped never to speak again. A devourer of realms. Q stands. Oh, you've met this thing before. Not this one, Thor replies grimly. But it's kind. The entity does not fire. It does not threaten. Instead, a voice echoes directly inside every mind aboard the Enterprise. Cold, vast, utterly without emotion. Anomaly confirmed. Divine class variable detected. Initiating correction. Picard grips the railing. Correction of what? Thor steps forward. Of me. Lightning erupts around him as he floats free of the deck, energy surging dangerously. It believes gods are errors, that power like mine destabilizes universes built on causality. Q snaps his fingers, trying to intervene. Nothing happens. Q's eyes widen in something close to fear. That never happens. The entity shifts, unfolding further into reality. Space fractures behind it, revealing glimpses of other universes, some burning, some empty, some eerily silent. Evidence of previous corrections. Worf snarls, fists clenched. Then it is an enemy. And enemies can be fought. Thor looks back at the Cruthese mortals who face annihilation without flinching. His voice lowers, heavy with resolve. This being cannot be reasoned with. If it completes its process, it will erase me, and everything altered by my presence. Picard's jaw tightens, including us. Yes, a beat of silence. Then Picard straightens. Then we do what Starfleet always does. We stand our ground. Thor turns to him, surprised. You would risk your universe for one god. Picard meets his gaze. No, we risk it for the principle that no power divine or otherwise gets to decide who deserves to exist. For the first time since arriving in this universe, Thor smiles not with pride, but with respect. The entity's structure begins to glow, reality unraveling around it. Time fractures, possible futures cascade outward. Federation, worlds burning under divine wars, or fading quietly after Thor's erasure. Only one path remains unseen. Thor raises Mjolnir, lightning screaming as it answers him fully now. Then hear me, he declares, voice shaking the void itself. I am Thor of Asgard. I will not be corrected. The entity responds instantly. Space collapses, and the first blow of a war that could unmake destiny itself is struck. What if the battle to save this universe couldn't be won with strength, only with sacrifice? The collision is silent, not because it lacks force, but because the universe cannot process it fast enough to make sound. Thor's lightning slams into the devourer with the fury of a dying star. Blue-white energy tearing across its impossible surface. Space ripples outward in concentric waves, knocking the Enterprise violently aside like a leaf in a cosmic storm. Structural integrity failing on decks 12 through 19. Someone shouts. Picard grips the arm of his chair as the ship groans. Reroute all remaining power to shields. Mr. Data's hands blur across the console. None that result in victory. Captain. The entity is adapting to Thor's energy output in real time. Each strike increases its resistance. Outside, Thor feels it too. Every blow lands, but each one matters less. The devourer does not bleed. It learns. Fragments of shattered probabilities swirl around them, ghost images of Thor dying, of the Enterprise reduced to atoms, of entire timelines snuffed out like candles. The entity's voice returns, now louder, more focused. Divine variable escalating instability. Solution, removal. Reality tightens around Thor like a noose. His lightning flickers. For the first time since facing Thanos, his strength begins to drain, not from exhaustion, but from negation. This universe is slowly rejecting him. Q reappears beside Picard. No theatrics, no jokes. I can move the ship, save them. Picard doesn't look at him, and Thor. Q hesitates. He's the problem. From a cosmic perspective, he always was. Thor hears them not with his ears, but through the thinning fabric of existence. He turns, catching sight of the Enterprise struggling against forces it was never meant to endure. Faces he's come to recognize. Mortals who stood their ground when gods and cosmic judges demanded obedience. His jaw tightens. Memories flood him Modin's final lesson, that a king is not defined by the battles he wins, but by the people he protects, when winning is impossible. Thor lowers Mjolnir. The lightning dies. Picard's eyes widen. Thor, what are you doing? Thor looks back at him, calm now, resolute. What I should have learned long ago. He floats closer to the devourer, letting its field wrap around him. Pain lances through his body as his connection to cosmic power frays. The entity pauses confused, divine variable no longer resisting. Thor speaks, voice steady, despite the agony. You are correct about one thing. I do not belong here. Picard slams a fist against the railing. No, there has to be another way. There is, Thor says softly, but it costs me. Q's eyes narrow. If you do this, you won't just leave this universe, you'll sever yourself from all of them. No Asgard, no return, no legends. Thor smiles sadly. Then let me be remembered, not as a god, but as a choice. He releases Mjolnir. The hammer does not fall. Instead, it dissolves into pure energy, wrapping around Thor like a cocoon of thunder and light. The devourer reacts instantly, attempting to absorb it, but Thor channels everything he is, not as power, but as will. He becomes an anchor, a stabilizing constant, a living seal. The devourer screams not in pain, but in failures. The rift collapses inward, dragging both entity and God toward a shrinking point of nothingness. The pressure vanishes. The Enterprise lurches free, shields stabilizing. Picard watches, breath held, as Thor turns one last time. Live well, Jean-Luc Picard, Thor says. Your universe is worthy of itself. Then light implodes. Silence returns. The stars snap back into place. Thor is gone. On the bridge, no one speaks. Even Q stands motionless, something uncharacteristically heavy in his eyes. Data finally breaks the silence. Captain, the anomaly has been sealed. Probability matrices have stabilized. Picard stares at the empty space where a god once stood. At what cost? Far beyond Federation space, something stirs in the darkness, not the devourer, but something else. Something that felt Thor's sacrifice echo across realities. And it is not finished. What if Thor's sacrifice didn't erase him, but transformed him into something the universe itself could never forget? Weeks pass. In Starfleet time, the incident is classified under layers of clearance, so deep it becomes myth even among captains. Official reports call it a dimensional instability, resolved through anomalous containment. No gods, no hammers, no sacrifices. Just tidy language wrapped around the impossible. But the universe remembers. Strange things begin to happen along the Enterprise's path. Subspace storms dissipate the moment the ship approaches. Long-range scans occasionally register faint electrical signatures, localized, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat appearing for milliseconds and vanishing again. Once, during a routine stellar cartography mission, lightning flashes briefly inside a newborn nebula, where no atmosphere exists. Data is the first to notice the pattern. These phenomena, he says carefully, occur only in regions where the devourer's influence would statistically have been highest. It is as though something is maintaining equilibrium. Picard listens in silence, fingers steepled. He has not spoken Thor's name aloud since that day, but he thinks it often. Of a god who chose restraint, of power that bowed to principle. Q appears one evening in Picard's ready room, unannounced, as always, but different, quieter. You miss him, Q says. Picard doesn't look up from the stars outside his window. I miss what he represented. Q smirks weakly. Careful, you're starting to sound like me when I pretend to be sentimental. Picard finally turns. You know something. Q sighs, leaning against nothing at all. When Thor sealed the rift, he didn't just remove himself from this universe. He bound himself to the fracture points between realities. He became pre-structure. Picard's brow furrows. You're saying he's alive. Alive is such a limiting word. Q replies. He's more like a constant. Wherever universes strain against each other, wherever power threatens to tip into annihilation, he's there, holding. Picard absorbs this slowly. A god reduced to a safeguard. Q's eyes soften, or elevated to one. Far away, far beyond warp lanes and known dimensions, the tear trembles at the edge of existence. Something ancient presses against it, testing, probing, and it meets resistance. Not lightning, not force, but will. Thor exists now, as thought and storm, memory and boundary. He feels universes brush against him like tides. He cannot walk among mortals, cannot lift a hammer, cannot be worshipped or feared. But he can choose. He remembers Picard's defiance, Worf's unflinching honor, a crew of fragile beings who faced cosmic judgment and refused to kneel. The pressure recedes. The tear heals. Elsewhere, Q watches unseen, unusually still. Well played, Odinson, he murmurs. You finally learned the game. Yet not all is at peace. In the depths of Borg-controlled space, a cube pauses mid-transwarp. Collective sensors register something impossibly, an external force, altering probability without technological cause. Adaptation impossible, the collective concludes. So when the cube in Sector 001 hesitates just for 0.47 seconds, sends a tremor through the collective that no alarm could ever match. Probability models fracture. Outcomes diverge. Every projected path toward assimilation encounters the same anomaly. Resistance without origin. Intervention without presence. A force that does not attack, but denies. Within the cube's vast interior, drones pause mid-task as data floods the hive mind. Entire civilizations erased in simulations suddenly persist. Assimilation timelines collapse into paradox. The collective reaches the same conclusion again and again. There is a variable it cannot quantify. On the Enterprise, Data receives the encrypted alert first. His head lifts slowly, eyes flickering faster than usual. Captain, long-range Borg activity has changed. They are no longer advancing. They are observing. Picard looks up sharply. Observing what? Data hesitates. Us, and regions of space associated with the prior anomaly. Picard exhales quietly. Then they remember. Elsewhere in Federation space, whispers spread through the highest levels of Starfleet command. Not officially, not on record, but captains talk. Scientists compare notes. Too many impossible survivals. Too many disasters that almost happened and then didn't. Some begin to call it the thunder threshold. A theoretical line beyond which reality itself pushes back. Q watches all of this from a vantage no one else can perceive. Arms folded, expression unreadable. Careful, he mutters to himself. You're becoming an idea now, Thor. And ideas are contagious. Far beyond linear time. Thor feels the strain increase. Something is learning. Not the Borg, not really. They are merely the symptom. The true danger is subtler. The more the universe relies on the boundary he has become, the more pressure builds against it. Balance maintained too long begins to look like design, and design invites challenge. Thor senses it approaching, not a being, not a machine, but a convergence. Civilizations reaching too far, powers aligning, forces that believe the universe should belong to those strong enough to shape it. He cannot strike them down. He cannot warn them. All he can do is hold, but holding has a cost. On the Enterprise bridge, Picard stands alone late into the night shift, gazing at the stars. For the first time, he allows himself to speak aloud. I hope you were right, he says softly, not knowing if anyone is listening, that this was enough. For a moment, just a moment, the stars flicker like distant lightning reflected on glass. And deep within subspace, something vast turns its attention toward the boundary that dares to deny it passage. A test is coming, one that will decide whether Thor's sacrifice truly saved this universe, or merely delayed its reckoning. What if the final test of a god wasn't whether he could save a universe, but whether that universe could stand without him forever? The convergence arrives without spectacle. No explosions, no grand invasion fleet, just a quiet, terrifying shift in the fabric of existence itself. Across multiple quadrants, constants begin to drift. Light behaves strangely. Time slips by, fractions of seconds where it shouldn't. Entire star systems feel examined. Starfleet sensors fail to name it. The Q Continuum notices immediately. This is bad, Q admits, standing alone at the edge of everything, staring into a pressure wave of collapsing possibility. This isn't a conqueror, it's a consensus. The convergence is not a being, it is an outcome. The inevitable alignment of civilizations, intelligences, and forces that have all reached the same conclusion independently. The universe should be optimized. Free will is inefficient. Chaos is wasteful. Gods are unacceptable variables. Mortals are unpredictable. And boundaries, especially ones created by sacrifice, are meant to be tested until they break. Thor feels it more clearly than anyone ever could. The strain on his existence intensifies. He is no longer just holding back intrusion, he is holding back inevitability. Every moment, countless realities lean against him, pushing, questioning, demanding proof that restraint is stronger than domination. His essence fractures not painfully, but quietly, like a mountain slowly ground down by time. And for the first time since his transformation, Thor understands something terrible. If he continues like this, the universe will become dependent on him, and that would be failure. On the Enterprise, alarms flare briefly, then stop. Data looks up, startled. Captain, the anomaly field has changed. It is dissipating. Picard stiffens. Dissipating. How? Not collapsing. Data clarifies. Receding. As though the stabilizing force is withdrawing by choice. Picard's heart sinks. He's letting go. Across realities, Thor makes his final decision. He remembers Odin's voice not as command, but as truth. A king is not a shield forever. He is the one who teaches others to stand. Thor releases himself not all at once, but carefully, gently. He doesn't vanish, he unthreads. His presence spreads thinner and thinner, woven into the laws of reality, instead of standing apart from them. Not a god at the gate, but a lesson written into existence itself. The convergence presses forward, then hesitates. There is no wall to break, no entity to overpower, only consequence. Power used without restraint begins to collapse in on itself. Optimized timelines fracture under their own rigidity. Civilizations that sought control encounter paradox, stagnation, failure, not because Thor strikes them down, but because the universe no longer rewards domination. Balance reasserts itself. The convergence dissolves, not defeated, but rendered meaningless. Q watches the final echoes fade, eyes wide with something like awe. "You clever, stubborn, magnificent idiot," he whispers. "You didn't win. You made winning unnecessary." In the quiet that follows, the universe exhales. No more lightning in nebulae, no more impossible signatures, no guardian watching the edges of reality, just a cosmos returned to itself. On the Enterprise, Picard feels it without instruments, a subtle, profound normalcy settling back into place. He nods once, to no one. "Thank you," he says. Far away, far beyond memory and myth, Thor Odinson no longer exists as a being, but his choice does. In every civilization that hesitates before conquering, in every captain who chooses diplomacy over firepower, in every universe that learns restraint is not weakness, and somewhere, deep in the structure of reality, thunder no longer roars, it listens. And that is how a god truly leaves the final frontier.